Every video on my channel has led up to this moment. Most shooters are wasting money, time, and ammunition at the range every day because they don't practice the fundamentals in their home, and dry fire fixes that. I'm making this video because I spent 8 years in a special operations role in the military, being a subpar pistol shooter. Within about 2 months of getting out and completely changing the format of my training routine, I went from being subpar to exponentially faster and more accurate. I wanna show you guys how to do it today. What's up, guys, and welcome to the channel. It's Justin here again. And today we got a really cool video because we're gonna be talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is dry fire drills. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Oh my gosh, skip the video. We've already heard about it. Dry fire this, dry fire that. Everyone's talking about dry fire. I hope today that you guys will get value out of my video because we're not just going to be talking about doing dry fire, but I want to give you guys a very measurable approach to dry fire. An approach to dry fire that I think is different than the one that you guys have heard in the past. One that I have incorporated with myself, with private students, and with friends and family who have seen their times on specific drills, their par times, go down very far. I want to make a promise to you guys. If you actually listen to the things on this video, go home and apply it for 3 weeks, I can promise you that you're gonna see a significant drop in the times that it takes you to do these drills. If you guys are new to the channel, take a second to like, subscribe, go check out my other videos up to this point. It really helps the channel grow. We are almost at 2,500 subscribers, which is gonna be a huge achievement for me, one that I'm gonna be pretty proud on. Go down, check out the other content. If you think that it's something that provides you value, then go ahead and follow for more weekly videos, fingers crossed. Before we jump into the meat and bones of what this video is going to be, let's just talk really quick about what dry fire is and what dry fire is not, okay? To start it off, I'm gonna tell you guys a quick story. I remember the first time I was ever introduced to dry fire, which was basic training, okay? I remember being in the Bay, we were just given our guns, they were going over all the crap with them, and one of the drill sergeants said, you know, hey, make sure you guys do your dry fire training. And I was like, what the heck is that? And the way that they explained it to us was getting in the prone position with our rifles, and then they would have us put a quarter on our muzzle device, and the goal was that you could pull the trigger without the quarter falling off of the muzzle device. Whether this drill really offered any true value or not, I can't really say. It wasn't super measurable. I'm sure that maybe it helped me with my trigger squeeze a little bit better, but I think it was just a lot of fluff, okay? I don't really think that it was great. And when I talk to people about dry fire, it seems like their experience is very similar to that. It's this like obscure thing where, oh, before I leave the house, I pull out my gun and I do some dry reps, or when I'm bored and I'm watching a movie with my wife, you know, she's got Love Island on, I pull out my gun, and every time, you know, that really annoying guy comes on, I, you know, present my gun and I pull the trigger and I try to make sure that my sights stay aligned. And that was another thing that I noticed when I was talking to people about dry fire, is there was this constant theme of an emphasis on the trigger squeeze. That dry fire was about getting your trigger squeeze perfect, about having your trigger squeeze be so smooth and crisp. Today, I hope to kind of just throw that all out the window. I want to preface this video by saying this. These are not 100% my ideas. Everything that I'm, you know, regurgitating to you guys is stuff that I've read, stuff that I've watched in videos myself, stuff that instructors have given to me, and I've gone out, tested throughout my years in the military and now in the civilian world, and then also in the time that I've been instructing, have been able to teach these to individuals and then see the results on their end. So this stuff works if you actually apply it. If I talk about techniques or phrases or explanations to things that come from somebody else, I'm gonna try to give them credit for that information, because at the end of the day, most of these guys are much better instructors and shooters than I am. And if you could find their content and go and you know, binge watch their content, you're gonna be a great shooter too. And at the end of the day, that's why we're all here, right? Is to become better shooters. Okay, so that's a brief example of what I think dry fire is not. So then what is dry fire? How do I see dry fire, okay? The analogy that I'm gonna use for how I view dry fire training is that When I go to the range and I shoot my gun live fire, that is like me going to the gym and getting a 1 rep max on, let's say, bench press, okay? Now, if I go to the gym every single day and I do a 1 rep max for my bench press, how quickly am I gonna see results? Probably not very quick, right? There's other techniques that you use to build muscle so that then in 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks down the road, when you decide to retest your 1 rep max, you can see results and strength and progress. That's where dry fire training comes in. I treat dry fire training similarly to how I would treat going to the gym every single day. There's a schedule, there's specific drills that I'm doing. I'm measuring the time it takes me to do those drills. I'm measuring where I'm seeing my sights or my dot when I'm focused on the target. I'm collecting data and then trying to slowly progress and slowly speed up and slowly become more accurate so that when I go to the range, I can then test myself to see the improvement. And I take the information from the range to then guide the next set of weeks or days, however long in between live fire training I have, to make the corrections needed so that I can then improve for my next range day session. Do you see the difference? The things I'm doing on the range and the things I'm doing in dry fire are almost identical. The only difference is because I'm doing it dry, I have the ability to get hundreds of more reps in at zero cost in the comfort of my own home. Okay, so now that we have maybe a brief understanding of what dry fire is and what dry fire is not, let's just talk about setup and how to get ready to do dry fire in your home, okay? So the first thing that you're gonna wanna do is make sure that your weapon is clear, okay? So you drop your magazine, weapon is clear, right? The next thing that you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna get some sort of targets on your wall. You're gonna see people online who have freaking awesome dry fire setups and little dry fire ranges in their house. That's awesome. If you have the ability to do that, go ahead and do that. If your wife allows it, go ahead and do that. But sometimes you gotta be really simple. I've got 3 targets up here on the wall. These are C-zone targets, and then I just have a piece of masking tape here in the middle to kind of signify the middle of the A zone for me. In my bedroom of my home, I have other pieces of just masking tape, a similar size, just put in the room to kind of be my targets without really disrupting how the room looks, all right? There's not targets hanging up on the wall. So whatever you have to do, get some sort of target up on your wall, all right? It can be a sticky note, a piece of tape, a pasty, whatever you want it to be. But I would recommend having 3. Bare minimum 3. I think that's a good starting point. Now you may have noticed with my gun, there's some weird things going on here with my optic and with the top of my barrel. This is kind of a little pro tip here for you. I like to take a piece of paper and I kind of roll it up and stick it in between my slide and my barrel, which takes my gun slightly out of battery, if you can see that. The reason I take my gun slightly out of battery is because now I get a full trigger squeeze without having to rack my slide every single time. The reason for the masking tape is because one of the main things that we're gonna be training here when we're doing our dry fire training is our vision focus, all right? And we want our focus on the pasty on the target, not on our dot.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that.
If I can line that up, whatever. Not on the dot. When you put masking tape over your optic, what that essentially does is if I try to focus on my dot, the masking tape blocks out the image of the target. But if I stay target focused and my eyes are here on the pasty, the dot will be superimposed on the target and I will be able to see both. If you wanna have some really good dry fire reps, start with that. All right, the next thing that you guys are gonna wanna have in terms of setup is some sort of shot timer. Now, if you have a real shot timer and you can use that, go ahead and do it. The problem I found using a real shot timer is that they're super loud. And so for me, I've got kids, and most of the time I'm doing my dry fire training, my kids are in bed asleep. And so there are ways that you can kind of quiet that down, but a better method and a free method that I like is the T-Rex Arms Range Day app. I don't know if you guys can see that, but they have a dry fire timer. So right here, I've got the par time set to 1.5 seconds. You hit go, your first beep is start, second beep is the 1.5. Very helpful tool. It's quiet. It's just your phone's volume settings, so it's nothing crazy, and you can use any 3-digit second you want. All right, and last but not least, grab some freaking water. All right, and the reason for this, if you're a competitive individual, you're gonna tell yourself that you're gonna go downstairs and you're gonna do your little dry fire training for 15 minutes, and you're gonna look at your watch, and 45 minutes later, you're gonna be sweating your butt off downstairs in your basement with the fan on, still doing your dry fire drills and chasing time. So grab some water so that you don't look like a total freak when you come upstairs and your wife sees you. All right, so we know what dry fire is and what dry fire is not. We've got our gun clear, we're safe, we got masking tape over our optic, we've got a rolled up piece of paper separating our slide and our barrel, we got targets on the wall, we're set up ready to go. So what next? What do we freaking do? I'm gonna recommend for you guys 2 drills that I want you guys to start off with, that if you practice these drills the correct way and you're aware of what's happening when you're pulling the trigger, next time you go to the range, your times will improve. Now, the reason I'm gonna be recommending these 2 drills is because I think these drills have an awesome emphasis on the 2 most important aspects of shooting, which are speed and accuracy. These 2 aspects of shooting are inseparable. In my opinion, one without the other means nothing. You could be the most accurate shooter in the world, but if it takes you 5 seconds to draw your pistol and get an accurate shot downrange, it means nothing. Same goes for speed. You could have a sub-second shot from your holster, but if you're not hitting the target in the A zone, you're not really an accurate shooter. Your shot doesn't mean as much to me now, okay? So we need to train both aspects, and I think these are really good for training those. The next reason that I'm gonna recommend these 2 drills is because I think they have a heavy emphasis on the 2 main things that you should be training when you're doing pistol shooting, okay? And that is your grip and your vision. Those are the 2 things that you should really be thinking about. I'm not really gonna talk about grip so much in this video because I've already put videos out about grip. There's a million videos you can find on grip. All I'm gonna say is this: do not overthink your grip. Grab the gun with your dominant hand, get high and tight on that beaver tail. All this remaining surface area, take up with that non-dominant hand. Make sure that you grab these little fingers, pull nice and tight. As you're presenting that gun, you should be getting a vice grip here in the back, and you should be feeling the pressure on the back strap of your gun. Remember, the recoil from your pistol happens from this slide reciprocating back and forth. So the more pressure I can have up here on the top of the gun, the more easier it's gonna be for me to control that recoil. What I am going to talk about is your vision and what should be happening, or what you should be noticing with your vision when you're doing dry fire drills. So let's take a second to talk about vision and what you should be focusing on with your vision as you're doing your dry fire drills, okay? I've got my handy dandy little fly swatter here. This red piece of paper represents your red dot, because every time we're shooting, our red dot should be somewhere on this target. Unfortunately, this red dot really grabs our attention as shooters, all right? And our eyes naturally want to focus to it. It's bright, it's red, it's unnatural, and so we want our eyes to focus on it, and it's harder to focus where we should be, which is here on our pasty at the center of the target. The bullet is gonna go where your eyes are, okay? If you want speed and accuracy, your eyes need to be focused on the pasty. How do we practice this? For one, every time we start a drill, when we hit go on that par timer and we're waiting for that beep to sound, we need to remind ourselves to stay vision focused here at the center of the target. If we're not vision focused, because we have put masking tape over our optic, we should be able to tell when our eyes get focused on our red dot, because we will not see the target anymore, okay? Which will remind us to refocus our vision on the pasty. So let's say that you go and you start repping some drills. You realize that every single time you aim your gun, all you see is the blue tape. That is your signal to start looking here at the pasty. The goal is that when you draw your gun and you naturally present it as you are staring at your target and that specific point on your target, the goal is that your dot will naturally superimpose itself over that pasty, because in your dry fire, you have repped that hundreds and hundreds of thousands of times. That's why we dry fire. If we were to do that on the range, not only does it take more time to do that because we're actually firing around, because we're actually loading our magazines, walking to and from our target. Here at home, we can rep that hundreds of times until the point that it becomes muscle memory, where when we present this weapon every single time our dot is exactly where our eyes are looking and focused. An analogy that I've used in some of my classes before, which I totally stole from Ben Stoker, who if you don't know, you should go look him up, go follow him on Instagram. He's, love him or hate him, he's probably one of the best pistol instructors there is out there. He's also written some fantastic literature on pistol and carbine shooting. So go check him out. But he has this analogy which is just perfect for explaining the relationship between your red dot and the target. And this is the analogy he uses. For those of you who have ever visited Utah, you'll know that Utah is like the #1 plastic surgery state in the country. Okay, so let's say you take your wife, your girlfriend out on a date, you go to get some sushi, and lo and behold, the doors open and one of these hot Utah moms walks in with her yoga pants and the whole 9 yards. If you don't want to get in trouble as a husband, as a boyfriend, where are your eyes? Your eyes are looking at your wife or your girlfriend, but you are aware of what just walked into the restaurant. This right here represents your wife. And if you want to be a better shooter, you focus on your wife, but you have to be aware of this pretty red dot and what it's doing on your target. Hope that analogy helps. Now, some of you guys might be a little confused. Justin, you just said we have to focus our eyes on the pasty, but then you're also saying we have to be aware of what the dot is doing. Now, here's another little aspect of this relationship. You're aware of where it is and what it's doing on the target, but your eyes have to remain focused on the pasty. So in terms of shooting, what a lot of guys are used to is they present their weapon, they see their dot come into the A zone, they wait for it to get right over that pasty, and they pull the trigger. And then it probably rises up and then falls back down. If you want to become a faster shooter, you have to be okay with a smaller level of confirmation. And what I mean by that is confirmation for where your dot is on the target. Sometimes all you might see is a flash of red over the A zone. Is that enough for you to pull the trigger? That's up to you. What I would recommend though, is that when you go out and you do your next live fire training, play around with your confirmation levels and see what level of confirmation right now you can get away with and still get into the A zone, okay? Because I promise you it's gonna speed up. The best shooters are not waiting for that dot to fall perfectly on that pasty every single time before they pull the trigger, all right? They might see this, and because that red dot's in the A zone, that's okay, and that's enough for them to pull the trigger. Now let's pause really quick, because I gotta make this note. Levels of confirmation are for training, not necessarily for engagement. This is a totally different scenario. Again, I'm gonna steal from Ben Stoker because he's the greatest pistol instructor out there. We're training right now at 200 miles per hour. We're training and we're going fast. We're doing that so in the real world, when we're asked to drive at 100, we feel like we're going slow. If I train with limited levels of confirmation on my dot, when it comes time for the real world, getting that confirmation is like that. It's way faster. But if all I train is I have to have perfect confirmation every time before I pull that trigger, you're gonna be slow for the rest of your life, and you're not gonna ever be able to shoot Ricky Bobby speed. We understand what dry fire is. We've cleared our gun, we got our target set up, we're ready to go. We've promised ourselves that we're gonna maintain a good, solid grip while we're dry firing, and that every single time before we start a drill, we're gonna remind ourselves to stay vision focused. We're gonna be aware of our dot, but we're focused on the target and on the pasty specifically. What's next? The first drill that I'm gonna recommend you guys practice is the bill drill. The bill drill is awesome for multiple reasons. The first one is you get to really test your speed. For those of you who don't know what the bill drill is, you're gonna start off in your basic shooting stance, all right? Mine is kind of my hand right below my belt line in the front, and then my forearm touching my magazine in the back. When that first par timer beep goes off, you're going to draw your gun, you're gonna aim at the target. When you get some level of confirmation on your dot, you're going to pull the trigger 6 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're gonna get some level of confirmation before you put your pistol down and reholster. What does the bill drill train? One of the first things I really like about bill drill is you're working from the holster, okay? Anytime you're working from your holster, whether you're coming from a duty background, law enforcement, military, your pistol always starts in your holster. But what the bill drill really tests is your grip. With your grip, you need to be able to maintain your grip throughout this entire magazine, right? If your grip is only good enough for one round, that's a bad grip. With your bill drill, it's requiring you to grab your pistol super fast, so your grip has to be repeatable. It has to be something that you can do very quickly. And then when you aim and present your gun to the target, you have to be able to pull the trigger 6 times while maintaining a good grip fast. Why does that matter? One thing that you guys will come to find when you start training more and more is the tighter you have this dominant hand, the harder it's gonna be to pull that trigger really fast. If you guys take your hand right now and clench it like you were gripping your pistol real tight, try to pull that finger as fast as you can, and it's gonna be tough. Now, if you relax this hand and grip it just enough, see how much faster you can pull that trigger. The bill drill is gonna force you to figure out that grip so that you can pull your trigger fast. The next thing it's doing is you're firing 6 rounds. And so your grip has to be good enough for 6 rounds, which I would say is a pretty good engagement. If you're firing 6 rounds at somebody, that's a pretty fair engagement. Next thing that I really like about the bill drill that it's testing is your vision. We're firing 6 rounds. For my first shot, if I'm waiting to get perfect confirmation, I can promise you my bill drill is gonna take more time than it needs to. All right, for that first shot, all I'm looking for is a flash of red in the A zone. As soon as I see that flash of red, that is my okay to pull the trigger. After that, what I should be seeing is a straight up and down in the center of my A zone. If I'm seeing any left to right or diagonal movements, that means there's something wrong with my grip that I need to fix. And the great thing about dry fire is that if you are aware of what your dot is doing, then you can diagnose those problems and fix them. And then when you go to the range, you will actually be able to see holes in your target that will again tell you what you're doing wrong with your grip so that you can fix it. That's why the bill drill is awesome, and in my opinion, a staple drill that you should be practicing every single day, especially if you're new to shooting. The next drill that we're gonna be talking about is El Pres, or El Presidente is the full term, okay? This drill is really awesome. It's gonna highlight some things that I think bill drill doesn't highlight, but that when you take the two together and you practice them often, I think that everything else starts to come a little faster. How do we do El Pres, or what is El Pres? Technically speaking, you start El Pres turned away from the target. Now, if you're doing this by the book, your hands should be above your head, but as a new shooter, if you're still working on your draw, then I would just recommend starting down at your normal stance. When the first beep of your par timer goes, you're going to simultaneously turn around and draw your pistol. So I turn around, I draw my pistol, and I aim at the target. Now for El Pres, you will have 3 targets that you are going to be aiming at, and you want them about 1 meter apart. The engagement pattern is 2 in the center, 2 in the left, 2 in the right target. You are then going to bring your pistol back, conduct a reload. It should be a slide lock reload, and then you're going to do again 2 in the center, 2 in the left, and 2 in the right. You may be wondering, why don't I just start from the left or the right side and just work my way over? Wouldn't that be faster? Yes, it would be faster. But one of the key things that El Pres is training is your eyes and your vision focus during target transitions. I start in the center, and then I make a 1-yard transition to the left target. From there, I have to make a 2-yard transition with my eyes to the right target. Now, the reason this is important is because it's training our eyes to have to lead the gun. This is something I really want you guys to focus on during your dry fire training. When you draw and you aim at this middle target, you're only shooting 2 rounds. As soon as you start to pull the trigger for that second round, your eyes should already be transitioning to this pasty here. Now, what you're gonna see and what you're gonna notice is a lot of times you're gonna go to make that transition and you're gonna stare at that dot the entire time. And again, some things I've heard from fantastic instructors, an analogy they use is when you're on your mouse and your keyboard, you grab your mouse and you see the pointer on the screen. Do you sit there and when you move the mouse, do you stare at the pointer the entire time? Or do you look at the exit on the page with your eyes and then you just trust that your hands are gonna bring it there. And it works every single time, right? It's the same thing with pistol shooting. Your eyes go to the pasty. As soon as you're starting to pull that trigger on the second round, your eyes should be transitioning to that one and trusting that your hands are going to bring your optic or your sights to the pasty. If you do not do that and you get sucked into your dot here and you focus on your dot, you're gonna notice that you will either overshoot the target and have to walk back on, or you're gonna start pulling the trigger early as soon as you hit the target. So if you're seeing that in your reps, know that you need to work on your vision focus. The other thing I really like about this drill in terms of vision focus and kind of these target transitions is there's also a transition from the target, specifically this right target, to your gun to do your magazine change. When I engage that far right target after the first rep and I need to make my mag change, my eyes should not stay downrange. Now this may be controversial to what some of you guys have heard, but if we are practicing a slide lock reload, meaning my gun is empty, it doesn't matter how much awareness I have of what's going on downrange because I can't do anything about it. My gun is done. What I need to do to get back in the fight is get my gun back up with loaded rounds. My vision should go from the center of that target as soon as I pull that second round to my magazine well so that I can make that mag change. I bring the gun to my workspace, I focus in on my mag well, my eyes completely on the target, I do the mag change, hit my slide, and I go push back out to the center target. So it's not only a change from target to target, but it's also target to magwell back to target, which is gonna trip a lot of people up. But that's why we're here, to practice it 100 times so that when we go and do it live, it's all muscle memory. Then obviously one of the other benefits of this drill is that you are working the mechanics of a magazine change, which is awesome. All right, so now that you understand what bill drill and L-Pres are and the benefits of doing them, how does structuring this program look, okay? And obviously I know I'm not really talking about a full program with you guys, it's just 2 drills. But if you guys did these 2 drills every day, and let's say you did 15 minutes of each, so 30 minutes total of dry fire. If you did that for 3 weeks, I can promise you that you'll see a significant drop in your time and a significant increase in your accuracy. But let's talk about exactly what you should be tracking when you're doing these drills so that you're not just coming down here and repeating a bunch of nonsense. Doing the same thing over and over again, it's just gonna drive you crazy and you're not gonna get anything out of it. We talked a lot about vision and where our focus should be. So let's say I decide I'm gonna do the bill drill. Every time I do it, I draw my pistol and I notice that first round, it's always freaking high. Every single time it's at the top of the A zone, or maybe it's even higher. I'm gonna write that down in my notes on my phone or on a notebook. And I'm gonna say, week 1, every time I draw my pistol, my first round, my confirmation, it's always high. It's always high on the target. And then I'm gonna test some things out to try and fix that. For example, maybe my shoulders are flared out and I need to relax them. Maybe I'm going like this and I need to relax. Maybe I'm locking my arms out and I want to relax my shoulders a little bit. Maybe I'm pointing my head and turkey necking and instead I need to bring the gun to my eyes. Okay? There's various things that you can try to do to fix to make it so that very first presentation of your weapon is right on the target or at least closer to that pasty. The next thing that I want you to be thinking about is, back again to the bill drill, let's say as you're pulling your trigger, you notice that every time you pull your trigger, the dot goes low and to the left. What this would be a sign of is nothing to do with your trigger squeeze, because I'm of the belief that inside of 25 yards, your trigger squeeze does not matter. You can have somebody else pull a trigger, you can have a wrench, a monkey, I don't care. Anyone can come pull that trigger, and if you have a good grip and good vision, it will go where you want it to. Let's say you're pulling the trigger and you notice it's going low left every single time. What that tells us is maybe, potentially, we need to loosen the grip on our dominant hand, because when we start really pushing speed and we crank down on this gun, especially with our dominant hand, what tends to happen is our wrist rolls slightly inward when we squeeze really hard, which causes the gun and the optic to go low and to the left. And a lot of times when we really start pushing for speed, we end up monkey gripping our gun and we get results like this. I'm gonna write down all these notes. So I go and I do the bill drill for 15 minutes straight. I get 100 reps in. all right? Maybe even more. 15 minutes, I think you could probably get more in. And then I try to write down potential solutions, and I practice those solutions, all right? So that by the end of the week, hopefully, I'm pulling the trigger and all I'm seeing is that dot just wiggle here on my pasty. Maybe it takes longer than that, that's okay. At least we're making progress, all right? That's the goal with dry fire, is that we're trying to find solutions and make progress. And if you need help finding solutions, that's where books like this, I don't know if you can read that, Practical Shooting Training by Ben Stoger and Joel Park, that's where resources like this can really come in handy, because they teach you how to actually read your target instead of the bull crap that you find online or at your local shooting range, which is totally wrong. Next, El-Pres. So what are we thinking about when we're doing El-Pres? Well, the focus on El-Pres is a little bit different than Bill Drill, right? Bill Drill has a heavy emphasis on our grip, whereas El-Pres has a heavy emphasis on our eyes and our transitions between targets. So what I'm thinking about and trying to fix when I'm doing El-Pres is, are there times when my eyes are getting sucked into my dot? Which there almost always is. So for example, when I first started doing El-Pres, my first engagement, so target 1, 2, and 3 would go really smooth. But as soon as I would bring my eyes to the mag well and do my mag change and go back out, I would get sucked into the dot, and my next 3 engagements would go a lot slower. I fixed that. The next thing that I found was my transition from the middle target to my left target was really good, but my left to my right target, I would always overshoot it and hit top right. So I'm tracking where my dot is going, okay? Because I'm not actually firing live rounds, right? I'm tracking where my dot is going, and I'm aware of it. And then when the drill is over, I'm taking note of that and then writing down my potential solutions to try and fix it. And at the end of 3 weeks of doing this, all right, and you can incorporate other drills too if you want. 3 weeks of doing this, I promise you're gonna be way more accurate and way more fast. That's the approach I want you guys to have to dry fire training. It's not just about getting the reps in. It's not about just going through the mechanics. And it's definitely not about your trigger squeeze. It's about working the fundamentals of grip and vision, and then finding solutions to make you a faster and more accurate shooter. All right, guys, I'm gonna close the video out with that. It's already longer than I wanted it to be. I want you guys to put in the comments below things that you found were new information, things you disagree with, some things that you agree with, and let's also say some things maybe that you guys do on your own that has really improved your shooting. One quick tip though I wanted to give you guys before we close this whole video out. Good rule of thumb when you're doing dry fire training is the more embarrassed you feel to do it, probably the better result you're gonna get from it, okay? So the last little piece of advice I have for you guys is record yourself when you're doing your dry fire. Now you don't have to record the whole training session, obviously, but let's just say you record yourself doing 5 reps of Bill Drill, 5 reps of El-Pres, or whatever else you start to incorporate into your dry fire routine, because it's gonna evolve. These are just 2 drills that I think are kind of the baseline for shooting, in my opinion, because you're going to see things you're doing wrong. And I'm not here to make a huge video about what do you need to look for, and how do you fix it, and this and this, and this is just to give you a very baseline approach. You can find all that other information on other spots. But for a good baseline approach, record yourself and then see, oh my gosh, I totally turkey neck when I do this. Or when I draw my gun, I always push down before I pull up, all right? And that's eating up time. Try to figure out what those things are that are slowing you down or could potentially be making you inaccurate, and try to fix them. And unless you have someone there watching you, you won't get that information from anywhere else. The other good thing about recording yourself is if you have friends who are better shooters than you can send it to them and you can say, hey man, help me out. I'm really stuck. I can't get my Bill Drill below 3 seconds. What do I gotta do? Here's a couple reps. Give me some pointers, and you're gonna get some awesome information. That being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. We were in the shop today, we're in the basement. If you haven't already, like the video if you found that you got something out of it. Subscribe to the channel. September and October, I have a whole set of videos planned out. All right, my goal is to do 2 to 3 long form videos a week, and I've already got them all planned out. I really wanna try to grow this channel by the end of the year. It's something that I'm kind of putting higher up on my priority list. That being said, thank you guys for stopping by, and I'll see you guys in a couple days.